All right, guys. So this is going to go on page 65 of your notebook. Um, I think this is going to be the last thing that I show you in chapter 12. I'm planning on giving you guys a test sometime next week. Yeah, I'm still working on the details on that. Make sure that we still have questions and reflections written down. I know we're not going to see each other in class for the rest of the year, but I'm still planning a way for me to check off your notebook. So just stay consistent, up to date with that, right? Yeah, I should have plenty of time at home to do that. Okay, so students will be able to graph vertical translations of trigonometric graphs. All right, so we're gonna do this. So this is A cosine, B theta. We should know what this is. This is your amplitude. Remember, this is 2 pi over b is your period. Right? The only thing that I'm going to add on now is the inclusion of this plus k. Now, the k could be a plus and minus. It doesn't really matter. This is called your vertical shift. The k can go in front or in back. It doesn't really matter where it goes. It's still going to mean the same thing. It's still your vertical shift. It's the thing separated out. Please note that I didn't write parentheses around it, because the inclusion of parentheses means something completely different. Like, it has to not have a parentheses around it. Okay? All right, so let's see what k does. So y equals, I don't know, let's do 2 sine 3 theta. Let's go plus 4. Okay, same thing as always. My amplitude is 2. My period is 2 pi over 3, right? 3 is here, is 2 pi over it. My phase shift is 4 up. So same thing. I'm going to draw my 4 dashes. 1, 2, 3, 4. Throw your period at the end. 2 pi over 3 goes at the end. To find this first coordinate, if you guys remember correctly, we're going to take our period and we're going to multiply by 1/4. That's 2 pi over 12, which is pi over 6. My next point, I'm going to take that first point, 2 pi or pi over 6, and multiply by 2, so I get 2 pi over 6, which is pi over 3. To find that third point, I'm going to take pi over 6 again, right? It's off of pi over 6 always, and multiply that one by 3, so I get pi over 2. Now we're going to worry about our vertical shift. Our vertical shift, sorry, I wrote PS here. It should actually be a VS for vertical shift, is 4. So I'm going to go 4 up. 1, 2, 3, 4. And at 4, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw this horizontal line. This dashed horizontal line throughout. Okay, so remember, we had one here. Like, it always, like that, at y-axis or x-axis right there is usually where like our middle is, but because we moved up, that's what that is. Our amplitude is 2, so I'm going to go 2 up from 4, so it's at 6, and 2 down, which is at 2. Now I'm going to graph out sine. Sine starts in the middle, and it goes high, middle, low, middle. Remember, everything is in respect. It's in respect to that midline, that dashed line that's right there. Okay, everything is in respect to that one. Let's do another one. Y equals negative, I don't know, 1 plus 3 cosine 1/2 theta. I'm just going to put a 1/2. Yeah, it doesn't really matter. My amplitude is 3. My period is 2 pi over 1/2, which is 4 pi. My phase shift is 1 down because there's a negative here. Okay, throw down my period at the end, which is 4 pi. Break it down, so 4 pi times 1/4. That's just pi. 2 pi, 3 pi. Next, I'm going to graph out my phase shift, which is 1 down. Then my amplitude is 3, so I'm going to go 3 up. So 1, 2, 3. So it's at 2 and 3 down. So 1, 2, 3, which is at -4. And everything is according to that. So cosine, if you guys remember correctly, starts high, goes middle, low, middle, high. So something like that. And that's how you would do that. Cool. Cool. Okay, we're going to move on. My next one that I want to do is, it doesn't really matter. Like, even if I do a secant, I don't know, something like that, it shouldn't really matter if I do secant, because we should know that the idea of graphing out a secant is the same thing as graphing out a cosine, right? Like, we gotta remember that secant is really cosine. So I'm just writing down my basic information here. Cool. Now I'm just gonna graph, breaking down 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Put my period at the end, which is pi. I'm just gonna take pi, multiply by 1/4 to find my first coordinate, which is pi over 4. Then I'm gonna take pi over 4 times 2 to find my second coordinate, so that's pi over 2. And then I'm going to take pi over 4 and times it by 3, so that's 3 pi over 4. Okay, from here, my vertical shift is -3, so 1, 2, 3. I'm going to draw a midline there. Okay, now from there, my amplitude is 2, so I'm going to go up 2, so it's at -1. Go down 2, which is at -5. So I know I'm between -1 and -5. Secant, like I said, is really cosine, so I'm going to graph out a cosine. It starts high, middle, low, mid, high. So something like that. Now I kind of messed up. If you guys notice, I made this into I made that into a solid line. It should actually be a dash line, right? Because we're doing secant. So it's a dashed line there. So I'm just gonna draw this straight down. Now I'm just going to draw my asymptotes, right? Now I'm drawing it there is because that's where like the black intersects the blue, right? Like wherever your graph intersects that midline that you draw out, that's going to be really where your asymptotes are going to be. Okay. Here's another problem. Why don't you guys try this one out? This one I'm going to give you, I don't know, running out of numbers. Sine. I don't even need to write a 1 here, so I'm not. I don't know. Okay. So why don't you guys... Nope, I don't even want that. Sorry. Let's do that. Cosecant. Why don't you guys pause the video here, and then when you guys come back, you guys will see the solution. Alright, cool. Hopefully you paused and you tried this out on your own. If not, it's all good. My amplitude is 1 because there's no number in front, so it's technically a 1. My period is 2 pi over 4, which is pi over 2. My vertical shift is 2 up. Awesome. Okay. Now, do the same thing. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pi over 2 goes at the end. Take pi over 2, times it by 1/4 to get pi over 8. And that's your first coordinate. Then take pi over 8, times it by 2. And then you get pi over 8 times 3 is 3 pi over 8. And that's how you find your 3 coordinates right there. Okay. Okay, now from here, what we're going to do. Okay. what we want to do is we want to graph out our vertical shift. It's like 1, 2. Our amplitude is 1, so we're only going to go 1 above it and 1 below it. So we're between 1 and 3. Remember, we're going to draw a midline through. And it's secant, cosecant. Cosecant is really graphing out sine. So sine starts middle, high, middle, low, middle. And we're going to make this a dashed line because it's secant. And wherever that the dashed lines intersect, we're going to draw a vertical asymptote, right? And that's it. Okay? All right. The next thing I want to show you guys real quick is how to do a tangent. Tangent's really simple too. Like, I'm going to make this example relatively simple. Cool, that'll be good. Amplitude is 2, period is 2 pi over 2, which is pi, and your vertical shift is 1 up. Okay, so kind of messed up there already. Remember, for tangent, you kind of want to put it more in the middle, right? You want to throw it more towards the middle. And what we're going to do is we're going to take our period and we're going to multiply by 1/2 to get pi over 2. We're going to throw pi over 2 here and negative pi over 2 here. And remember, these are going to be your vertical asymptotes automatically. To find the inner points, these red ones right here that I just drew in the middle of them, I'm going to take pi over 2 and I'm going to multiply that by 1/2 again. So that's pi over 4. From there, my amplitude, my vertical shift is 1, so I'm at 1. I'm going to draw a midline at 1. And then my vertical shift, or my amplitude, is 2, so I'm going to go 2 up, so it's at 3, and then 2 down, which is at -1. And then I just follow the pattern. You know, using my new highs, my new lows, I'm just going to follow my pattern for tangent. That was horrible. Following my new pattern for tangent. God, this is not looking good. Okay, it's not going to get better. So yeah, that's the idea right there. So it's the same thing. It's just an idea of moving up and down. Okay. Now, the last thing I want to show you guys is what happens if the outside is a negative. So let's say I have a -2 sine theta. My amplitude is still 2, right? We're always going to do the positive amplitude. My period is 2 pi. You guys should know how to break this one down, so I'm not going to waste too much time doing it. Remember, we're going to put our period at the end. Divide that by 4 to get pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2. And I don't move up or down, so I know my amplitudes are still going to be at 2 and -2, because there's no plus, like, up and down. Now, sine usually starts middle, which stays true. But this negative right here, that's a reflection off of x-axis. Okay, it's a reflection off of the x-axis. So we're gonna go, instead of going up, we're gonna go down. That's the only thing that's different. Like, we go up or we go down instead of up typically. And like, it holds true. Like, if I were to do it with like -3 cosecant theta, like, technically, like, because cosecant is technically graphing out sine, like, the rule stays the same, you know? Like, I'm still gonna go down, up, like that. It's still gonna be reflection, and then I'm still gonna have my asymptotes. Like, nothing really changes. Okay, nothing really changes for that. Same thing for cosine. Cosine's a little bit tricky. So I'm just going to do the basics for you. Like I said, the idea of you breaking down a fourth, like, you guys have to be able to master. Okay? This and the unit circle stuff that we did before we got on break are probably the two most important things that you guys need to take away from this chapter, especially the unit circle. Unit circle is so important. Anyways, I digress. Cosine usually starts high, but because there's a negative, it actually starts low. So it flips on itself like that. That's the only time that it does that. Oh god, this is not looking good. Oh god, that looks horrible. But you guys get it. Right? And then like the same thing, like I can do the same thing for like 2 secant theta. It's the same thing. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? It's the same thing. Like I'm gonna start low because I'm technically graphing out cosine. So it's very similar. Okay, so yeah, nothing really confusing about that, if that makes sense. Okay. That's about it. Oh yeah, for tangent. Sorry, let me show you tangent. What happens when tangent is a negative? So I'm just gonna do a basic tangent graph. If tangent's a negative, then the order just flips. It goes like that. Okay. Don't get confused. Like I'm worried for you guys to get confused between like what if I add a -1 in there? Like sorry, I'll do it in the next slide. Like if I do y equals 2 cosine of I don't know 3 theta minus 1. Like something like that, right? Like this minus does not cause the reflection. That -1 is up and down. Right? The negative needs to be directly in front. Same thing, like if I do this, like this negative that's in front of the cosine, that's still up and down. Like this is still up and down. That's still your vertical shift. It's the one directly in front, the sign that's directly in front of it. Okay. All right. So that's about it. This goes on page 65. 66 is the worksheet. It's going to be online. All this is going to be due on Thursday. I'm going to send out a I'm going to send out a Zoom conference for, for those of you that want to, for those of you that want to, that have questions on the homework or anything, you guys can contact me through Zoom. It's probably going to be on Wednesday. So yeah, I'm going to post the details about that. It's going to probably be Wednesday. It's not mandatory, but if you want to like come by, ask some questions before our test next week, or, you just want to see my face or something like that, I'll be there. Okay. I'll definitely be there. Okay. If not, then, maybe another time, but yeah, have a safe week. I'll put up new stuff on Thursday for you guys. All right, bye guys.